all the hard work that went into it. Oh! Open the door! I'm not gonna be able.
Everything looks normal, until it suddenly isn't. A quiet night turns into a violent break-in. A peaceful canyon becomes a deadly flood trap. And deep in the woods, something is watching, waiting. If you were there in that moment, would you make it out alive? This unsettling footage was recorded by a man named Clayton. On August 22, 2024, Clayton set out on what was meant to be a peaceful camping trip with his relatives and a few close friends. Their destination was Havasupai, a remote area deep within the Grand Canyon, widely known for its striking blue waterfalls, including the famous Havasu Falls. What was expected to be a calm retreat into the wilderness quickly began to fall apart as the environment itself turned dangerous. By 10 o'clock in the morning, the group had completed their descent into the Havasu campground and began organizing their campsite. About an hour later, around 11 a.m., rain started to fall. At first, it seemed minor. Light showers had been mentioned in the forecast, so they stayed where they were assuming it would pass shortly. What they did not realize was that this change in weather marked the beginning of one of the most terrifying experiences they would ever face. It became a moment where nature showed just how unpredictable and hazardous it could be. They waited expecting the rain to ease so they could continue exploring the area. But without any clear warning, the situation shifted suddenly. An emergency flash flood alert was issued instructing everyone to evacuate immediately and move to higher ground.
What's your last words? We don't make it out of here. We're good. Look at that water coming over that side.
In Havasupai, the towering canyon walls and narrow pathways funnel rainwater at extreme speed. The ground absorbs very little moisture, meaning even moderate rainfall can quickly turn into violent, flash flooding within minutes. Clayton and the others did not expect the water level to continue rising, but that is exactly what began to happen. Campers were scattered throughout the area, and as conditions worsened, park rangers urgently instructed everyone to move to higher ground without delay. Some people grabbed whatever belongings they could carry, while others were forced to leave everything behind. As the water continued rising, fear spread, and the seriousness of the situation became impossible to ignore. When the rain finally stopped, a brief sense of relief settled over the group. For a short moment, it seemed the danger had passed. But that feeling quickly disappeared when a second surge of floodwater rushed through the canyon. Clayton and part of his group managed to reach higher ground, crossing a bridge just in time. Moments later, the water rose so quickly that the bridge itself became too dangerous to use. This left the remaining members of their group along with several other campers stranded on the opposite side. Fear spread as everyone watched the water continue rising with no sign of slowing. Conditions worsened by the minute, and it became clear they were completely at the mercy of a powerful and uncontrollable natural force.
He said they have tents for us.
I'm not going back down there.
The trees are going.
As the situation grew more severe, people gathered on higher ground, hoping the water would begin to recede. Then a terrifying sight appeared. A couple from another group was seen clinging to the canyon walls, barely holding on as floodwaters rushed beneath them. Panic spread through the area until rescue teams arrived just in time, pulling the stranded pair to safety. The moment served as a stark reminder of how quickly the peaceful beauty of Havasupai could turn deadly. Eventually, the bridge became safe to cross again, allowing limited movement through the canyon. However, the lower areas remained extremely dangerous, with water still moving at powerful speed. Helicopters were unable to reach the stranded campers right away, so Clayton, his family, and around 50 other hikers made their way toward a nearby town within the canyon, only to find it also threatened by flooding. They were fortunate to escape when they did, but the destruction around them was undeniable. Some campers were swept away by the rushing water. Survivors later described terrifying moments of holding on caught between survival and death. The speed and force of the flood left no room for error. For those who experienced it, the memory of seeing people carried away by the current would remain forever. Clayton and his group were eventually rescued from the town the following day, while some of the most isolated hikers were not brought to safety until 2 days later. In the end, the disaster caused significant loss. Equipment and personal belongings were destroyed, and tragically lives were lost. Several people did not survive, and some were later found downstream. Events like this show how dangerous flash floods can be, even in places that appear calm and safe. When heavy rain begins, the safest choice is to leave low areas, immediately move to higher ground, and never wait to see if the water will stop rising. If you were there, would you evacuate right away, or risk waiting too long and hope the water slows down? The next unsettling clip comes from English Woodsman, a UK-based channel focused on wild camping forest travel and bushcraft skills. The channel is known for realistic solo trips, practical gear use, and moments that capture the quieter, more uncertain side of nature. The footage is dated December 31st, 2016, recorded in a secluded woodland area somewhere in the United Kingdom, with the exact location never revealed. As night falls, the camper settles into his hammock, completing his final checks around camp before attempting to sleep. Temperatures hover near freezing while the wind begins to pick up, pulling against the tarp above him. He eats a simple meal, adjusts his sleeping bag and quilt for extra warmth, and keeps an eye on the surrounding trees. Although the forest remains mostly still, faint movement in the distance, draws his attention, creating an uneasy feeling that he might not be alone.
I don't think I'm alone in the woods tonight. I think there's some other people camping out. I think there's 2 campfires on one area. Now I'm not sure if that's my eyes playing tricks. I don't want to cross paths with anybody when I'm out camping. I'm going to try and get my head down anyway, and I'll see you all in the morning.
At sunrise, he moves toward the area where he remembers seeing unusual lights during the night. He carefully searches for signs such as ash footprints or disturbed ground, but finds nothing to suggest anyone had been there. Looking back on the experience, he admits the night left him unsettled, even though the woods appear completely empty in daylight. As the video concludes, he describes the event as strange and uncomfortable, while also stating that he does not plan to avoid the location in the future. Situations like this remind viewers to stay cautious when camping alone, especially after dark. Paying attention to unfamiliar lights, sounds, and personal instincts can help maintain awareness of the surroundings and guide decisions on whether to observe, relocate, or wait until morning. If you experience something similar while camping, would you investigate further or remain where you are and wait for daylight? Havasupai set out on a new trip on February 1st, 2026, looking for the calm of a snowy landscape to enjoy a comfortable, self-sufficient camping experience inside his car. What began as a peaceful solo escape, however, quickly turned into a fight for safety. For this journey, Havasupai converted his car into a functional solo camping setup. With everything prepared, he headed out expecting an ideal snowy adventure.
Car's been off for about 20-30 minutes and it is getting pretty cold. So for my heating solution, I've purchased this Korean butane powered heating device that a lot of people on the internet recommended. I'm a little sussed out with butane burning inside of a car, so I'm gonna use it sparingly and only when I'm awake. For my cooking solution, I brought along this propane stove. The gas line runs underneath the countertop through a little niche I cut out where you can connect it to a can of propane. I made sure to bring some cooking supplies like this pan and also a cooler for a few items that I wanted on ice rather than in the fridge. For my appetizer, I'll be having some lightly toasted bread, salted grass-fed butter, salmon boba on top. A little salty, a little fishy, and just the energy that I'll need to cook up the main course.
Everything was neatly arranged, making cooking feel easy and convenient. After finishing his meal and spending some time reading quietly, a deep stillness settled around him. It seemed like the night would pass without any problems. Eventually, he turned off the lights and went to sleep, not long after the calm atmosphere changed.
Hey! Hello, who is this? Can I help you? Hey! What can I do for you?
Open the door! Open the door!
I'm not gonna be able to do that.
Hey, what are you doing?
A stranger suddenly appeared and demanded that he open the car door. As Havasupai tried to stay composed, the person became more aggressive, pounding on the windows and shining a flashlight directly inside. Realizing the danger, he quickly started the engine in an attempt to get away. The attacker escalated further, hitting the windows and tearing away the mesh screen until the glass shattered. Pieces flew inside, leaving him scratched, including a cut near his eye.
It's been like 2 weeks since this happened. What you can't really see in this video is that the car that drives up and starts honking actually first fully blocks in my car. Someone comes out of the car with a flashlight. My windows are cracked open, so I try to speak to him and he's just not responding. It's dead silence. He then suddenly starts banging on the window, yelling at me to open the door. Once I heard the aggression in his voice, I realized that this was not a friendly encounter. So I reached around from the back and started up the car. He gets even more aggressive, starts banging on all my windows, continues yelling at me to open the door. Snow underneath the car is more frozen. My wheels are spinning in place, not catching traction. He aggressively rips off my mesh bug net, keeps banging the window harder and harder until he fully breaks it in, and I'm showered with shards of glass in my face. Right at this point, my wheels catch traction and there's just enough of an angle there where I can squeeze past his car, get around him, and get myself out of there. You can see my left eye rapidly blinking here. It was blurry the entire way home, and after getting it checked out, it appears that some of the glass had scratched through my eyeball. I've been going through treatment for that. My mind goes to maybe he lived in the area, saw my car, thought I was up to no good, but then why block me in and smash through my window instead of just talking to me?
In a critical moment, he managed to maneuver around the blocking vehicle and escape. Although he got away, the experience left him shaken, both physically and mentally. If his tires had lost traction or if his reaction had been even slightly slower, the outcome could have been much worse. If you were in that situation, would you have reacted fast enough? Dan is the creator behind the YouTube channel Exploring with Fighters. He takes viewers inside abandoned buildings and deep, reportedly haunted forests, using immersive storytelling to document the unknown. But on November 15th, 2022, he and his friend Flex experienced just how dangerous and unsettling these trips could become before they even finished setting up camp. On the night of a full moon, the two made their way toward Epping Forest to film another camping video.
I never ever take my equipment out of the car. I used this car to do a tip run only a few days ago, but I emptied the car and put my ground sheet on the bottom and did a big tip run, and I didn't put the stuff back in the car. I have everything in the car, put my bag in the car, put all my paranormal equipment in the car, the ground sheet's still in the car from when we did the tip run, but I just don't have the tents and the sleeping bags.
Their drive ended at the base of Hangman's Hill, where a quiet church stood under the moonlight.
Well, if we go around the back of the church and camp in the forest there, we can have a fire because we're not on the graveyard.
Is that noise?
Yeah, what the hell was that?
That wasn't a normal fox noise.
It could have been, but it didn't sound like an old fox.
Right, come on, let's grab our stuff and set camp. It's getting cold already, so... Right, so we've got the tent set up. This one is going to be our main warm fire. It's going to be our main warm fire. That one is going to be the cooking fire. So when that's died out and it's just embers, we'll put the pans on that. So doing it a little bit different this time.
Soft fairy lights dimly lit the church, surrounded by old gravestones, giving the area an eerie atmosphere. As darkness settled over the forest, camping nearby only intensified the tension. While moving deeper into the woods, they heard a strange sound echoing through the trees. They questioned whether it was just a fox or something more concerning. Eventually, they found a secluded clearing and began setting up camp. The large 6-man tent looked out of place among the dense forest. They built 2 separate fires and tried to settle in for the night. Despite the uneasy surroundings and earlier missteps, they prepared a steak dinner, one they would never finish.
Now this is where we realised there's a beast in the woods and it smells the steak and comes after us. It is pretty damn good. Do you like the broccoli?
We'll try some now, actually. I've never actually tried it.
It makes it all worthwhile. All the hard work that went into it. Oh! What's that? Shh. Can you hear that walk around? What's that?
As they began eating the overcooked steak, a dull thud broke through the silence. Seconds later, something solid hit the side of the tent. The atmosphere instantly shifted into the feeling of being watched. Even inside the large tent, they felt exposed. They froze, exchanging tense glances.
If you hear anything, tell us, because I'm not going to do anything with these. The CCTV camera, mate. So I've got a CCTV camera up there. It might go in on there. I put it up there because last time we got a fox on camera walking around the tents. So I wanted to see if we capture any animals walking around. But whatever that was, it smashed the side of the tent. It could have legit footsteps. At first I thought, hold on, it could be like a branch falling off the tree, right? But the way it smacked the side of the tent, but then the footsteps, but then it could have been an animal. I'll have to check that CCTV footage.
With growing concern, they checked their surveillance feed.
So when something's triggered on the camera, it takes about 2 or 3 second delay. So I didn't actually catch whatever was thrown at the tent. But check this out. In the bottom right corner, something comes into the frame. There was definitely someone there. And it looks like they just take a look what was going on. And as Flex pops his head out to take a look, they dart off into the darkness. Now this is quite a scary thought.
Due to a slight delay, the footage appeared moments later, a figure stepping into view. It stopped facing the tent. Then, as Flex opened the tent to look outside, the figure quickly vanished into the darkness. The footage gave no clear explanation. It confirmed only one thing: they were not alone. They left immediately, but one question remained. Who caused the disturbance? Had someone been watching them the entire time? And if so, what did they want? If you were there, would you have stayed to find out? This footage recounts the experience of 2 indigenous hunters, Frank and Donald, during a trip into the mountains of Alberta, Canada, an outing that ultimately ended with only one survivor. At the beginning of their hunt, the 2 separated, choosing different positions along the river valley to observe game trails from elevated stands. As daylight began to fade, Frank started hearing unusual sounds echoing through the forest and began recording what he could hear. The footage captured loud impacts and heavy cracking noises as if something was hitting wood nearby. When Frank climbed down from his stand, the sounds grew louder.
Sounds like something's hacking away at a tree. I'm getting down.
Following the direction of the noise, he spotted what appeared to be a fallen tree in the distance. Feeling uneasy, he decided to leave on his ATV and regroup with Donald before nightfall. But when he reached Donald's stand, something was clearly wrong.
Dawn? Dawn?
Donald was gone, and the same disturbing sounds had followed Frank to the new location, now accompanied by an even more unsettling tone.
Shit, man. Just heard something again.
Although he briefly considered that it might be a prank, The constant noise pushed him back toward his ATV, hoping to encounter Donald along the way. Instead, the situation worsened when the ATV suddenly failed to start.
Hey! Is that you?
With no way to use the vehicle, Frank had no choice but to continue on foot through the dark forest as the sounds continued closing in behind him.
Out of here.
While moving quickly through the terrain, he came across a disturbing scene suggesting that something else had been present in the area. Soon after, Frank discovered more signs pointing to a deliberate presence.
What the hell is this?
A crude shelter built from broken branches and interwoven twigs. He did not stop to examine it as the earlier noises began approaching again. For several minutes, he ran through the darkness, unable to create distance between himself and whatever was following him. With no clear escape, he prepared to confront it, an action that nearly cost him his life.
It's stalking me, whatever it is.
He attempted to defend himself, missed, and was quickly overpowered. Pinned down by the unknown attacker, he could only remain still and pretend to be lifeless. The camera then showed his body being dragged across the snowy ridge for what felt like a long time. Hours later, he regained consciousness inside what appeared to be the creature's den. The structure resembled the wooden formations he had seen earlier near the valley, surrounded by smaller versions of the same design. Disturbingly, they were decorated with bones and decaying remains. Nearby, he noticed a small arrangement containing what appeared to be the body of a young creature. Realizing the danger, he escaped and eventually made his way back toward the river valley where the hunt had begun. There, he found what remained of Donald. The two had entered the mountains together, but only one returned alive. Donald was never seen again. What exactly confronted Frank and Donald that night? A violent individual hiding deep in the wilderness? A known predator moving through the Alberta mountains? And how Frank managed to survive it all remains unclear. This story does not seem to be over. The YouTube channel Sidestep Adventures into History explores the forests of Georgia and unexpectedly uncovers exactly what the creator had been looking for: an old grave hidden among the trees.
Some of the flowers sometimes. This has the bottom part of the writing on it. Oh, yep, there it is. Mrs. Jane F. Yep, there it is. Sacred to the memory of Mrs. Jane.
He carefully clears away the surface and respectfully reads the woman's name engraved on the stone. Beneath the heavy grave marker, he notices a crushed bouquet of flowers left by someone who once cared deeply for her. The petals are still in surprisingly good condition and retain much of their original color. Finding flowers that appear relatively fresh at a grave that dates back more than a century is unusual on its own. But while examining the inscription more closely, he realizes who this Mrs. Jane is to him.
Her father Samuel story. I forgot how many children he had by his first wife, Winnie. Winnie died, and he remarried Stacy Duckworth. And Stacy Duckworth and Samuel were my great-great-great-grandparents. Wow. So she was actually a half-sister to my great-great-grandfather.
The woman buried there turns out to be a distant relative. The moment feels strangely like fate. Discovering history hidden deep in the forest can already feel mysterious, but realizing it is connected to your own family makes the experience even harder to ignore. If you found something like this in the middle of the woods, would it feel like coincidence, or something meant to be found? On the Dead Appalachia channel, most uploads focus on rural exploration, but footage recorded on January 24th, 2026, captured a visit to an abandoned coal mine outpost. The site was once operated by Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in Morgan County, Tennessee, and the area included several collapsed mine entrances along with remains of prison labor structures. The creator hiked up the mountain during daylight to explore the location. He explained that the terrain was difficult to move through, covered in loose sandstone slate dense vegetation and thick thorns. Some of the old mine openings were partially collapsed, filled with still water, and likely contained pockets of hazardous air. Throughout the area were horizontal mine entrances, remnants of old buildings, and even a guard tower that once overlooked prisoners forced to work in the mines. Because the tunnels were unstable, he chose not to enter them and kept the entire exploration above ground during daylight hours.
Hello?
You hear that?
For the investigation, he used an EMF reader, along with a spirit box to check for any unusual responses. During the session, he recorded a few random EMF spikes and some sounds from the spirit box that seemed to resemble words or names. However, the signals could have been interference from the surrounding environment.
Speak to me. Are you here today? Stuck here at this outpost, in this mine? Are you here with me today? Do you have a name or names? Kyle or whoever you may be, whoever died here in this horrible place, communicate with me. Say something.
Nothing physically unusual occurred during the investigation. He then moved to another part of the site, hoping a different location might produce new results.
Were you killed here? Working these mines by the guards or by poor conditions? And by the way, it's not this that's interacting with that. See, the spirit box is not setting off the EMF reader. It low-key sounded like it said warden. Are you mad at the warden for how you were treated here at this prison? About the guards in the tower who kept an eye on you?
After several attempts, he eventually began packing his gear and prepared to leave. In the end, he walked away from the abandoned outpost with more questions than answers. Sometimes, places with a heavy past can create unsettling feelings even when nothing clearly happens. If you explored a location like this alone, would the silence make you curious or uneasy enough to leave? When traveling deep into the wilderness, encountering something unusual is almost unavoidable. A video uploaded on October 6, 2019 on the YouTube channel Mir Bez Granits shows a cameraman walking through a forest near the outskirts of Perm when he unexpectedly comes across something unsettling. While moving between the trees, he finds a strange structure made from sheets of plastic weighed down with wooden planks. When he lifts one of the coverings, it reveals what appears to be a makeshift underground shelter. As he continues deeper into the forest, he soon discovers another structure. This one is also built from plastic and tarps, but it is positioned above ground and stretched between two trees. A pair of jeans hangs from one branch, a plastic bag from another, and scattered trash is spread across the area. Looking inside, he notices someone sleeping within the shelter. The cameraman quietly backs away. Before leaving the area, however, he comes across yet another structure. When he looks inside this one, it becomes clear that someone is living there as well, although no one is present at the time. One side of the shelter is camouflaged with branches, and clothes hang nearby on a line to dry. It appears that a small group of people has created a hidden settlement deep within the forest. There is no way to know how they might react to a stranger unexpectedly entering their space. What makes the situation even more unsettling is the location. The camp is situated deep in the woods, dozens of miles away from the nearest town. Sometimes the wilderness hides people just as easily as it hides animals, and discovering their shelters can feel even more disturbing than encountering wildlife. In a video uploaded by YouTuber Ray RLC on May 26, 2025, what was expected to be a calm overnight wildlife recording session turned into something far more disturbing. Ray, known for exploring remote outdoor areas and capturing eerie moments, had selected a quiet forest trail to monitor animal activity. The location showed fresh tracks and minimal human presence, an ideal setting for observation. Ray parked his SUV far from the site to avoid disturbing wildlife hiking in with only his camera gear and basic supplies. Once there, he set up a trail camera facing the path along with an audio recorder to capture ambient sounds throughout the night.
Found a deer trail. Look where it goes. So I, parked down that way, walked up here. It keeps going on up there. And I want to look up that way of the trail. So I think the perfect spot would be right here. This good old spot. And just look straight up there, and if any deer come walking by, I'll catch them. So I need to get the trail cam and set it up. And we got her. So here's the trail cam. Got it set up. It's facing over there perfectly. But I've got a nice little treat for you guys. There's the sound recorder. Okay. So I'm going to have the trail cam going. I'm also going to have the sound recorder going. I'm going to listen to the audio first, and then the trail cam, just to see what we hear and then what we see. Because that's kind of the fun. You hear something and then see it later. But this is not going to be motion detected, because sometimes, especially if it's small, I've got another issue too. I don't know. It's because the thing is, I have the trail cam directly on the trail. Trail cams do best at like an angle, not like this or like this, at an angle like this. But I have this going straight up. If something's coming right at me, sometimes the trail cam just doesn't want to move for it. It should, but sometimes it doesn't. So in order to not risk that, instead I'm just going to do a time lapse. I think time lapses are more fun anyways. If something changes but doesn't catch a motion sensor, it'll do that too, and that's why I prefer that. So we're going to get this going. I'll get that going, and I'll come pick these up tomorrow morning.
Instead of relying only on motion detection, he chose time-lapse recording, explaining that it tends to work better in areas with limited movement. After finishing the setup, Ray left the woods before sunset, encountering only one person along the trail, a brief and uneventful moment that still left him slightly uneasy. The following morning, he returned and found everything intact.
Oh, I think we're in luck. Nope, didn't get stolen. It's still here. Okay. There's my stuff, still here, waiting for me. In the outer quarter, it looks like it turned off. That's okay, it just means the batteries died probably not long ago. So, well, we'll see how much audio we get. It's made so that as soon as the battery dies, or right before the battery dies, it stops the recording, then dies, so you don't get corrupted or lose it. So we'll be okay. We'll see what kind of audio we got, see what kind of video we got. I'm really excited about that. Let's turn these off and take them down.
The audio recorder had shut off, likely due to drained batteries, but nothing appeared disturbed. Feeling reassured, he packed up and brought the equipment home to review the footage. Most of what he recorded was expected deer, raccoons, and other small animals moving through the area at night. But one clip immediately stood out. The camera had captured a shirtless man crawling across the forest floor in the middle of the night. The man was holding a large axe, had no visible light source, and moved in complete silence, not wandering aimlessly but advancing with controlled, deliberate movement. The scene felt like something out of a horror film. The man's behavior raised serious questions. What was he doing there at 4 a.m. alone and armed in such a remote location? The fact that he moved confidently without a light suggested he either knew the area very well or had a specific purpose. Some viewers speculated that he might have been unstable, while others believed something more concerning was happening, possibly a ritual or a predatory act carried out under the cover of darkness. A few even suggested he was intentionally avoiding being seen. The most unsettling detail is how close this situation came to becoming something else. If Ray had decided to camp overnight or returned slightly later, their paths could have crossed. What that man was truly doing in the woods and who or what he may have been searching for remains unclear.
That's it for tonight. Which moment creeped you out the most? Drop it in the comments. Have your own story? Share it with us, and stay tuned. The next one is even darker.